You are watching the New American Media. Hello and happy Friday, December 21st, 2012, the date we've been waiting for how long have we been waiting? For the end of the Mayan long count calendar. We're still here. If you are receiving this transmission, we are still alive. We are still kicking, we're still fighting. Still rooting for Cleveland sports here at the Unhappy Hour. Still enjoying good music. You're listening to two of our favorite drummers, Johnny Rabb and Sean Flynn, in the background here on a song called Metro. Special thanks to both Johnny Rabb and Sean Flynn on that, and my brother Chris Engelman for mixing it. It's a song Sean and I were working on prior to his untimely death about a year ago, and we've kept moving with the tune, just moving it forward. If you enjoy some of it, we'll post it sometime soon. It's called Metro. Under the Twist of Nothing banner, Sean Flynn kind of composed this one. But here we are. We are still moving. We are still... we're pinching ourselves. Pinch ourselves. We're still with it. Mayan calendar be damned. We're still rocking and rolling. Thanks for joining us. My name is Brian Engelman. This is the newamericanmedia.com, and you're listening to the Unhappy Hour. This is a place where we get together and reminisce about all the lousy times we've had as Cleveland Indians, Cleveland Browns, and Cleveland Cavaliers fans. Thanks for joining us today. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to be joined by Blake, the eccentric Wally of FreedomizerRadio.com and his radio show, Eccentric Perspective. We're going to do like a top news story extravaganza on Agree to Disagree, and we're going to get into a whole bunch of things like Benghazi cover-up and Hillary Clinton and her flu and her fall and her concussion, and she can't testify on Benghazi. And, I don't know, maybe some fiscal cliff, maybe some Pierce Morgan, because we're going to be talking gun control, and we're going to be talking Second Amendment, all that stuff, NRA. Interesting stuff coming up indeed, but let's not waste any more of your time. Thank you for joining us. Do us a favor, if you're not following us on Twitter, please do so. We're at American_media_. That's American_media_. Search the New American Media on Facebook and like our page. We would appreciate it if you did that. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/The New American Media. Please do that, because that's where we put up a lot of our new content as we get it. It has been a hectic past couple of weeks. Thanks for sticking around with us. We appreciate each and every one of you. I mean, we're just, 14,500 Twitter followers and 55,000 YouTube views and 100 Facebook likes. It's weird when you run a company site on Facebook. It's totally different than a personal site. So I'm surprised anybody finds us over there. But we're glad you're finding us and telling your friends. Thank you so much. It's been a hell of a ride so far. So without further delay, we're going to bring in NBA scout and lifelong Cleveland sports fan Zak Baris. He hasn't been with us for a while. The Cavs have been quite miserable. The Browns are miserable. The Indians aren't doing much. This really is the Unhappy Hour. Let's get Zak into the show right about now.
Hello?
Hello, Zak. It's Brian with the New American Media. You're live on the air. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Oh, man, I am busy. How have you been?
Busy.
Oh, only one
lot
busy?
Of traveling.
Yeah. Are you able to tell people where you're traveling back and forth to these days, or you're just all over the place?
Not really, no. I have to keep it kind of private.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
But it's basically around the West Coast.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So be it. This time of year, right before Christmas, the West Coast is not the worst place to be weather-wise, that's for sure. And this is, hey, by the way, this is the Mayan calendar long count end date. This is it. We're still here. Congratulations, Zak.
Oh, I'm very excited to still be here. I wasn't really expecting the world to end, so.
No, I was not expecting that either, but I'm hoping things can move in a positive direction from here. I think if we're entering a new age, let's make it a good one. The Cavaliers are entering a new age without LeBron James. We all know this. We bottomed out, got Kyrie Irving. He seems to be made of porcelain. He's breaking down all the time. It's a nice Ferrari or something, but it's very fragile. the Cavs are not looking so good. You're our resident NBA guru when it comes to this. So here we are at this point of the season. The Cavs just are looking weak. They're looking banged up. Lone bright spot, maybe Varejao, Irving when he's healthy, which is rare. Let's just get into it. What's going on with the Cavs?
Well, this is as I said earlier in the year. Chris Grant purposely constructed this team to have absolutely no depth whatsoever this season. He wanted to showcase the young rookie players as Tyler Zeller, Dion Waiters, and then the young ones like Kyrie Irving. And basically, they went out and they signed one guy for the bench this season in C.J. Miles, who's been absolutely, just atrocious, other than the couple games he started this year where he actually looked really good. But the Cavaliers, otherwise, they lacked any sort of depth, and when one injury happens, they're done. And that was the problem. They were playing decent basketball, and then Kyrie went out, and they just, they basically folded from there. They had no one who could basically run the offense. They played a couple really competitive games at the beginning with Pargo at the point guard, when they almost beat Miami.
Right.
And they had a couple close losses. But, and Byron Scott tends to always change his rotations without giving guys a chance, at least my opinion of him. He's very quick to change his rotations. And, if someone doesn't perform well, they're automatically out of the rotation. He just doesn't give them enough time. And, I don't love Byron Scott as a head coach. I don't dislike the guy, but I just don't know if he's the right fit right now in Cleveland.
Do you think we should bring in Rex Ryan, who will stick with Sanchez? Maybe he'll bring Mark Sanchez to stay with him, even though he's...
Rex Ryan doesn't, that's the problem. Rex Ryan needs to switch his, needs to switch his quarterbacks about 8 weeks ago and chose not to do it. But, like I said, the Jets are still somehow 6-8. The Cavaliers are, 5-22 or something?
Ugh.
It just look, they're going to lose 60 games this year. It's already decided. They're going to lose 60 games. And it's because of their lack of depth. Now, basically what a Cavs fan can hope for, and which I think is going to happen, is I think the Cavaliers will wind up having a top 3 to 5 pick. Certainly there's a good chance they'll finish with the second or third worst record in the NBA this season. I would not take it as a bad sign, though, if you're a Cavs fan. It allows them a chance to draft, a player with, an immense amount of talent. This draft happens to have a lot of depth, but there's not a lot of great talent at the top, unfortunately for Cavs fans. But, there are guys like, there's a lot of really good centers in this draft. You have Nerlens Noel from Kentucky, Alex Len from Maryland. You have, I'm trying to think, Cody Zeller from Indiana. So, it could get interesting matching up the Zellers together. It makes Varejao more expendable if you can draft the center at a higher pick, and hopefully pick up a couple picks in next year's draft for Anderson Varejao, because next year's draft there are two guys in there that I think are going to be superstars, and especially Andrew Wiggins, the Canadian-born product who's over at Huntington Prep right now in West Virginia, looks like the real deal. I mean, when I say real deal, I'm saying the guy has the potential to be almost, if not good, is not good as LeBron James. He has that kind of potential. I watched him play.
Let's put him on. Hold on. Let's put this guy on our radar. You're saying his name is Andrew Wiggins?
Yes, he'll be going to Kentucky most likely next year.
Okay.
Unless he changes his mind.
Yeah, because I mean those franchise faces, the Shaquille O'Neal, the Kobe Bryant, the LeBron James, the Michael Jordan. I mean, there are lots of great players in between these, but when you become transcendent, when you're able to, you're saying this kid, it's shaping up. It's early in his career, but it's shaping up where this kid has got that buzz, that same hype that LeBron had back in high school.
When I saw him at the Nike Hoop Summit last year, it was possibly the greatest single performance I've ever seen by a high school player before. Let's just put it that way.
What was so good about it?
Yeah, I mean, the guy he's such an efficient scorer, had a good jump shot. He was getting rebounds, blocks, steals, everything about the guy. I mean, his game was just so polished. You don't see that out of a junior in high school every day. And it was just, the kid was just fun to watch, and he was going against the American team. I mean, his parents are American. His dad, I think his dad was a basketball player, and, he was born in Canada, but now he's at Huntington Prep down in West Virginia, which I believe is the same school O.J. Mayo went to.
Okay, let me get back, though, because I think you mentioned, if I heard you right, that at some point down the road, if this falls into the right place, if that falls into the right place, something about Varejao being, what did you say, expendable or replaceable or something like that?
Expendable.
He's
I didn't
playing
say replaceable,
out of his mind right now. He's playing some incredible basketball.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing fantastic. I mean, he's the best center in the Eastern Conference right now. And
That's crazy.
I think Joakim Noah is up there, but I think he's having a better season than Noah.
Well, don't forget. I had this conversation at the restaurant the other day, last week. LeBron never had any talent to play around him. It's not like Verjao was on that team. It's not like there was anyone that was any guy.
Verjao wasn't playing like this 3 years ago.
I'll give you that.
If Verjao would have been playing like this 3 or 4 years ago, the Cavaliers would have 2 championships right now, but he wasn't.
Well, did you hear Bynum's comments? Bynum was saying that Kobe Bryant held him back. That it held back his
Andrew Bynum's going to say whatever he wants. And it's possible that Kobe hindered his development. I'm not saying it didn't. I haven't been in the Lakers locker room, over the last few years to know exactly what was going on in there. There's a chance, and there's probably a good chance it did. But Andrew Bynum needs to just shut his mouth and get back on the court. He's been all talk this season. I mean, this is the guy who injured his knee bowling. And I'm being completely serious when I say that. He's not out there going, at least trying to go, he hasn't recovered, he's had setback after setback, and he's been a major letdown for Philadelphia this year. They gave up a great player in Andre Iguodala for him.
Yeah, so absolutely.
He's
Denver's
been a major letdown. But granted, sorry. Granted, I think the Iguodala trade was good for Philly because it opened up, Drew Holiday's been, his game has improved immensely this season. And you have to look at, Evan Turner from Ohio State. He's been great this season too. He's been a rebounding machine. Everything about his game offensively has gotten better this year too, without Iguodala. So Philadelphia is hanging in there, and I think if they get a healthy Bynum back, Philadelphia is going to be one of the better teams in the East.
Okay, let's go back to the Cavs, though, real quick, because we're bouncing around the NBA, which is fantastic. And I want to get to the Lakers, because we both had real high expectations of our backyard Lakers out here in Los Angeles. That has not really worked out well. It's a bit of a train wreck, changing coaches and just still not getting on. Just they've been derailed early, and they've stayed off the rails. They are just completely off track. Like if you're golfing and you go off the fairway and you just second shot, third shot, you can't get back on. It seems like that's what's going on with the Lakers. But so the Cavs were built to not have any depth. It was intentional.
Chris Grant constructed this team on purpose. I could have told you that at the beginning of the season. Granted, I expected them to win in the 30s this year, but that was based on them being completely healthy.
Right. Well, and Kyrie is very fragile.
It hasn't been just Kyrie Irving. Tyler Zeller's had an injury. He was injured for a little bit. You don't have a backup center besides Zeller. Dion Waiters has been out, who's supposed to be your second scorer, your second scoring option. He's been out too. So, I think once the Cavs are entirely healthy, they're going to win some games. They will. But the problem is when you only have 7 guys that are worthy of a rotation spot on a team, that's forcing guys to play almost 40 minutes a night, when all the minutes are out. And that's a major problem. It doesn't work well when you only have a 7-man rotation. Most good teams in the NBA are anywhere from at least 8 at the minimum to 10 or 11 guys. Look at San Antonio's roster, how deep that is. It's another problem with the Lakers. The Lakers lack, they have depth issues, and that's why they've been so bad early in the season. But getting back to the Cavs, you're not going to win games in the NBA, especially when you have guys getting into foul trouble and they're picking up their 4th and 5th foul in the third quarter, which does happen frequently in the NBA. Who are you going to put in there for Kyrie Irving? Pargo, Donald Sloan. It just doesn't work. That's why you need a deeper rotation. You need a legitimate backup point guard in the NBA. You need a legitimate, 2 or 3 guard, a legitimate 2 or 3 guy who can score off the bench. The Cavaliers lack that. Unless C.J. Miles can actually shoot the ball like he has been lately, the Cavaliers lack that. Miles had been shooting 25% up until about 2 weeks ago. So, people just have to take it in stride. Watch the Cavs in the first half while they're fun to watch, and just watch them lose in the second half because Byron Scott teams do not play defense. I can't tell you how many games they've lost in the fourth quarter in the last 3 or 4 minutes of a game this season. They don't play defense. And their offense doesn't click and doesn't seem like they're running any plays in the fourth quarter. And it's tough to watch if you're a Cavs fan.
Well, one of the conversations go ahead.
I think the Cavaliers, though, are in a good position because, like I said, they will land a top 5 pick in this year's draft. I'm almost positive of it. Mark, you can book that. They'll at least have high odds of landing a top 3 pick. And then, next year is where you go out, you can fill out some of the bench in free agency, maybe even bring a starter here and there. And then 2 years and then after next year is where you make your push. There are a lot of big free agents. You try to sell. Your selling point will be playing with Kyrie Irving, and hopefully Dion Waiters improves. those will be their selling points, and maybe a young pick in this year's draft, whether they land a Shabazz Muhammad type player, if they're going for a 3, or if, it just depends what the Cavaliers are going for. I don't know. But, they could use a great backup point guard from Texas who might fall a little bit down the radar this year because he's not playing, Kabongo, who is basically Rich Paul paid for his trip to Cleveland, and so there's a connection there. And so I think he'd be another great fit as a backup point guard off the bench, early in his career, but I think he has legitimate starting ability. But the Cavaliers do have a few picks in the first round this year. They're going to be able to add some depth. They should be able to add, a quality free agent. They might have to overpay. That's usually what happens in free agency in the NBA. And then a year after, you make your run. They're going. I know it already. The Cavaliers are going. I'm not saying they're going to sign him, but like I said, they're going to make a run at LeBron James again.
You always.
He will be a free agent after next season. They will make a run.
All right. We always end up with LeBron James, but let me jump.
Just saying, if you're looking at the long-term outlook of the Cavs, it's so hard to predict the long-term outlook of the Cavs because they are going to make a run. I'm not saying they're going to sign him, but they will make a run at it.
Okay, let me back up to a couple points. I'm taking notes here. I didn't want to jump all over your toes, but I think most of the sports, baseball, football, and basketball, they overpay for the free agents. Whether it's Nnamdi Asomugha, it doesn't matter. Any of the
it's just how it always is. Yeah, what free agency is all about.
They fight with each other over just a couple of scraps or a couple of stars, and they really do overpay.
The thing is, great teams usually in football and baseball are usually built through the draft or the minor league system.
Steelers.
Most teams are not built through free agency. The Yankees, even the Yankees have homegrown talent on their roster. It's not a ton, but they still have homegrown talent on their roster. Or they've traded for guys, the minors. They've developed Robinson Cano, Derek Jeter. They do have some guys, and they have traded around.
I'll tell you what,
younger
though,
prospects for other players.
I'm interested to see the Angels with Josh Hamilton and Albert Pujols on the same.
It didn't work out last year, and you looked at the Cardinals. They went for some cheaper options in free agency. They went on some Carlos Beltran. And Beltran actually, he had a fantastic season. But they had guys like John Jay in their system. Freese, the third baseman. Like I said, they had a lot of homegrown talent, which allowed them to do so well last year and carry them so far. They were technically a better team than they were the year when they won the World Series last year. They probably, if they beaten, San Francisco, they probably would have beaten Detroit in the series. They were built to beat them. So,
well, one of the things I was thinking, Zach, is that we were talking about the Cavs earlier this year, and we were saying, hey, you know what? This team being healthy with Varejao, with Kyrie, with Dion Waiters, with Tyler Zeller, we might be able to compete for that eighth seed. We were very optimistic at the beginning of the year. I recall we were. Well,
you kind of had to be, because they were looking good, and they were looking good early in the season. But the issue is, and it will be, it's gonna stay like this. The issue will persist. That basically, with the lack of depth, you even saw what happened in the opening night against the Wizards. The Cavaliers had that 16-point lead, pulled all the starters midway through the fourth quarter, and what do you know? The Wizards were up by 2 within 3 minutes. And that's the problem with this team is the only way you're going to win games is if you're sticking out your starters for at least 40 minutes a night on a consistent basis. And with the risk of injury every night by keeping him out there in fatigue, it doesn't allow you to win that many games. Like I said, Chris Grant knew exactly what he was doing. The Cavaliers have over $20 million in cap space. They could have easily filled that out during free agency and tried to win games this year. And if they wanted to, they probably could have been the 8th seed in the playoffs in the East.
But once again, as we've talked about, you don't want to be the Atlanta where you're always in the middle of the pack. You're not bad enough to rebuild. You're not good enough to compete. You're just stuck in this limbo phase.
Exactly, and sometimes you have to be bad for a few years in the NBA in order to be good again. Miami happened to be very fortunate, and they were in a great position to sign 3 superstars.
Or conniving or secretive.
There was a chance at one point, though, when the whole thing went down in free agency, that, at one point everybody thought Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh were going to Chicago with LeBron staying home, which would have left Miami that purposely tanked for a few years, gave up draft picks, tried to clear cap room, would have wound up with nothing. It happens to teams. Look at Dallas right now.
No, it happened. No. It happens to the Cavs. It happens to Cleveland teams.
It happens to other teams too. The Cavaliers are just in a bad position. I'm saying it does happen to other teams. Not everything always goes according to plan, and that's what I'm trying to say. It happens with a lot of teams. Brooklyn tried to go out there and get Dwight Howard. Instead, they failed with Plan A.
That was a
with
mess.
Plan B and Joe Johnson.
Right.
And now they're looking like a team that's going to be stuck in purgatory for the next 3 to 5 years.
So in that case, it'd be better to have just done nothing as opposed to go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but they had to do something in order to keep Darren Williams and please your superstar. But it's not always the best move. That's why players are not general managers of teams.
And that's what I got into. That's what I got into. 2 points I got into with that guy last week when we went out to eat. 2 points was we were talking about the lack of depth on this team. I said when the Cavs were competing with LeBron James, we had the deepest bench in the league. We had a very strong top-to-bottom roster.
Yes, they did. And that was the thing. You had guys coming off the bench that would have been on any other roster in the NBA. The Cavs have a lot of D-leaguers on their team. It's unfortunate. But like I said, Chris Grant knew exactly what he was doing when he constructed this team. They purposely built this team not to win this season. They wanted to showcase their young guys. And that's exactly what they thought they were going to be doing. They were doing it early in the season before all the injuries hit. But like I said, in the second half of the season, you're going to see Waiters pick it up again. I mean, Waiters is doing exactly what I predicted this season. I predicted him originally to put up around 13 to 16 a game, shooting about 37 to 38% on the season. It's exactly what I predicted. It's exactly what he's doing. He's taking too many jump shots, which eventually that'll change. But right now he's taking too many jump shots, and it's causing, and he's not getting any calls too. He's a rookie. He's not going to get any calls, and he constantly complains and doesn't get back on defense. I think Waiters is a great talent. We've seen it earlier this year against the Clippers, where he had that phenomenal game, and he's going to put up games like that. He has that kind of talent. He showcased it before. But until he gains more experience playing with Kyrie Irving on a consistent basis and Anderson Varejao, he's not going to improve a great deal until he starts playing with his teammates, on a daily basis.
We're talking with NBA scout and lifelong Cleveland sports fan Zak Baris. You can follow him on Twitter at ZBaris. That's ZBARIS. Zach, staying in the NBA for a second here, talk about the Lakers. The Lakers, 5 games in, fire Mike Brown. So let's do a split question. Let's do this transition with, should Chris Grant hire Mike Brown to run the defense of the Cleveland Cavaliers? I'm kind of kidding on that. But then let's kind of break down what's going on with the Lakers.
Well, the Cavaliers are still paying Mike Brown, I believe. So
maybe the Lakers are too.
I'm just throwing it out there, but he will not be coming back to coach the defense of the Cavaliers. So that's not happening. That's number one.
Tongue in cheek.
Okay, getting to the second point though, the Lakers are just a complete mess right now, and it has a lot to do with the Lakers. Firing Mike Brown was untimely. It was a terrible time to fire a coach. They should have just fired him before the year if they didn't want him, not 5 games into the season.
I have a question for you.
When you're sitting there at 1-4.
Here's my question for you. Was it worse for the Lakers to fire Mike Brown? What was it? 5 games into the season, or was it worse to bench and then cut starting quarterback Charlie Frye after a few offensive series, and then he's gone by week 2? They just cut him from the entire team.
The Browns went 10-6 that year, so it turned out to be a good decision by Cornell. You can't fault him for that one. I mean, they wound up 10-6.
But it's just weird to think that you went through all your preseason, you went through all your practices, you've built a system, you're ready to go, and you just give up.
He flipped a coin, though. Cornell even said, he's like, I couldn't name a starting quarterback, so I flipped the coin. That's how he decided on Charlie Frye as a starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Make a lot of sense for the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Just got beat by the Browns by 23 points. But
hey, I want to let me plant this seed. I want to come back to Cornell. I want to talk about the Jovan Belcher thing and the tie-ins, how sports are starting to get into like all of the gun conversation with everything that's going on. Just plant the seed. We can come back to that in a second. But yeah, I mean, when it happened to Romeo Cornell I was happy to see Brady Quinn and Romeo pull out a win against really difficult circumstances the other day. But like I said, we can get to that in a second. Back to the Lakers. Horrible time to fire a coach. Bring in the new guy. He's got his knee injury himself. What is going on? Is it just when Nash comes back, everything's going to be fine, or is this team in serious trouble?
I can't tell you that. The problem is with Nash is this was supposed to be a weak injury. People keep going. When Nash gets healthy, We're sitting here now. We're almost 30 games into the season, and Steve Nash still isn't healthy. This is a 40-year-old point guard we're talking about, a 39-year-old point guard we're talking about. And not everything. That's the thing is, he's great on paper. But that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to recover from an injury anymore. If this was 25 or 26-year-old Steve Nash or even 30-year-old Steve Nash, the guy would be on the court right now, but he's not. And the Lakers right now, you're looking at them fighting for a playoff spot. Even they're not fighting for the top seed.
Yeah, if it started today, they'd be on the outside looking in. If it started today.
Now I think things will change when Gasol is finally back in the rotation full time, which he's already back. But I'm talking about having him in there full time, and then you get Nash in there. And then D'Antoni can finally start running his system. You'll see within 3 to 4 weeks if the system clicks or not. I don't think we'll know, until February, which is, like I said, about 5 weeks away, to see if they're really clicking on all levels. And if they're not by February, they're going to have a problem. If they are, they start playing good basketball, good luck to everybody in the West who has to face them. If the Lakers get in there as a 7 seed, I can tell you right now, a 2 seed's not going to want to face them in the playoffs.
Absolutely. You get hot at the right time. Any team in the playoffs can be dangerous when they gel late.
And I can say this after watching Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard, you would never know the guy is putting up 25 and 15 a game some games. With his numbers, he just looks like he's not even making a difference out there. And it's just strange to see that. When Varejao puts up 18 and 15, you know it. When Howard does it, it's just like, it's like the guy didn't even make a difference.
Well, elaborate on that. How does that happen?
Well, the problem is Howard's foul shooting. Basically.
Oh yeah, he's a train wreck back there.
And the thing is, what we look at is, you don't take just a look at a player's field goal percentage in the NBA. You take a look at his true shooting percentage, which combines how often he gets to the line, how many free throws he takes, and it averages his free throw percentage basically with his regular shooting percentage. And it also depends how many times he gets to the line. And you have to take a look at a player's true shooting percentage. That's what matters more than just field goal percentage. And last year, Tyson Chandler was in the high 70s. It was ridiculous. He may have even been 80% last year. It was unbelievable how high he was. But that's just someone who's efficient. Dwight Howard's going to the line, and people play a hack of Dwight ball in the fourth quarter. David Stern's even looking to change it. People did it. The Cavaliers did to Ben Wallace to get to the championship. In 2007, all they were doing was putting him to the line, knowing he'd miss every single free throw in the fourth quarter. And the guy would line up 2 for 15 from the line, give the Cavaliers back the ball every time, and they were winning games. It was working. It worked every game for the Cavaliers. Until Dwight Howard learns to shoot free throws, it's going to be tough for the Lakers to win close games because, it's hard for them to close when he's shooting 36 or 37% from the line.
I got a question about that because do you know off the top of your head where Mark Price is at these days? I heard he was at a college in Atlanta or something like that.
I think he might be at Georgia Tech. I'm not sure. I have no clue.
Yeah,
I know he was with the Magic for a while. I think he was even with the Hawks.
Well, because my question is, why doesn't a team hire someone that used to play for him, come in and just
Mark Price was the free throw. I think he was coaching Dwight Howard in Orlando for a while.
Okay, so you're saying that it doesn't. How hard is it to hit a free throw? They're the easiest shots you could have.
They say Dwight hits about 80% of them in practice. It's different come game time. Sometimes these guys get nervous. It was like Ben Wallace. If you talk to anyone, who was with the Pistons or the Cavs, Ben Wallace was not a lights-out free throw shooter in practice, but he used to drain the majority of his free throws. And come game time, though, they turn into air balls. It's not as bad as Andre Biedrins, but it's bad.
So it's kind of like how LeBron in the limelight, was never able to get it done with Cleveland. It took that introspective ass-kicking by the Mavericks to kind of have an offseason and reevaluate to kind of go, oh, okay, I got to put this component of my game together, and you come out stronger than ever, and you finally put it together. It's just some of these guys with their free throws. You've seen it with Shaquille O'Neal. You've seen it with Dwight Howard. You've seen it, across the league. It's a free throw. It's the easiest thing to fix if the problem is psychological, if the problem is fear and doubt in your head.
Don't forget is the reason point guards shoot better is because they get a higher arc on their shots. That's the reason why point guards are notoriously better shooters than centers. They have a higher arc on their shot. It's easy. It doesn't just go straight in. And that's the problem. Like taller guys have always had problems making free throws.
So they get better bounces. They get better bounces.
Yeah, exactly. And you're getting a higher arc on the shot. It allows you. And that's why these guys are better shooters.
But for $18 million a year, if all I have to do is sit in a free throw and learn how to shoot high arcing shots when I'm in a standing position, not the rest of my game, just that one spot of the floor, standing still, no one's coming at me. You figure that at some point you could start picking up all those extra points,
Exactly. It seems easier said than done, though.
Fair enough.
That's the problem.
That's just always been something that grates on me, like fingernails down a chalkboard.
If Dwight Howard was an 80% free throw shooter, the Orlando Magic would have a couple of titles by now, and I think he'd still be there. But he's not. And, the Pistons would have had a lot more titles, and same with every team Shaq ever played on. But it's just not, these guys can't always correct their mistakes, and it's tough. And like I said, it's easier than said than done.
Well, we're talking with Zak Baris over here. Zach, let's bounce away from the Lakers because I guess time is going to tell. They're either going to get it together or they're not. And even if they make a late run, get in as an 8 or a 7 or a 6 seed, they're still going to be dangerous with all of those players on the roster if they're healthy and gelling at the right time. Well, let's go around the league real quick because I just want to quickly then bounce to some of these other issues, maybe go into overtime and bounce out of sports if you're feeling it today to get into some of these other issues real quick. But what are the other storylines in the NBA? What are the things jumping out at you as far as some of the rookie play, some of the surprising teams, the disappointing teams, and things to watch out for as we move toward the All-Star game coming up here?
I think Anthony Davis has been phenomenal when he's been healthy this year. I mean, his PER and his efficiency rating have just been through the roof, especially for a rookie. I mean, he looks unbelievable. Damian Lillard looks great too. And I always hear from Cleveland fans go, "Why didn't we just draft Damian Lillard?" And I go, "The Cavaliers drafted Damian Lillard. He's the same type of player as Kyrie Irving. They're going to clash on the court. It's not going to work." So there's your answer right there. But Lillard's been fantastic this season. I'm trying to think. Kid Gilchrist has looked, he's shined it sometimes too. He's looked very good. Brad Beal's been benched multiple times this season. He doesn't look great. But, I think the Timberwolves are one of those teams to keep an eye on now that Ricky Rubio's back. They played decent basketball without him, and especially Andre Karolinko, who has risen from the grave. After being out of the league last year and playing in Europe, he looks amazing. And, I think those are the stories. I think there's some stories right there. Well, you have to look at teams, Chicago's been pretty good without Derrick Rose. Wait till he comes back and that offense starts clicking because, right now they don't have a lot of movement on the offensive side of the ball, but, they're going to be a very dangerous team once Derrick Rose returns.
When is that going to be? When are we looking at? February? January?
Yeah.
February. Okay. And they should be in a position to be in the playoffs at that time in a pretty good spot if all continues to go well.
Yeah, they will be a playoff team. I'm sure of that. I'm not too worried. They'll be a playoff team with or without him, because they're playing above 500 ball right now and their defense is on lockdown.
And is there anything more disappointing than the Lakers then? I mean, I guess that's kind of the standard bearer at this point. They've been just a train wreck.
I think they've been very disappointing. I think Brooklyn, with the way they've played lately, is they're disappointing to watch right now because earlier in the season, I was over there at the Lakers-Nets game in, the Staples Center, and I was watching Brooklyn. I was with a couple of coworkers, friends, and we were watching the game, and I just said, we were just talking about their ball movement on offense, and we were like, they look great. This is a team that looks prime. I can't believe their over/under was 43.5 games this year. They look like a 52, 53 win team when I saw them play, and now they're just collapsing.
Well, did you see the Cavs when they beat the Clippers? I mean, you would have thought at the beginning part of the season you had two different teams, and they've gone totally different directions.
Also, Deion Waiters shot lights out that night. It was not, there's a difference.
I'll give you that.
I was talking about just strictly ball movement. The Nets look like a team. They look like a force to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference at one point. And now they're not looking like anything. The Knicks have destroyed them. The Knicks, I did not have them. Back when I thought Amari was going to be healthy, I thought that team was going to be a disaster. Now that Amari's been on the bench all season and he hasn't been healthy, that team is clicking on all cylinders. Carmelo's playing out of his mind. Raymond Felton's back to his form that he was 2 years ago with the Knicks. Jason Kidd looks like he's 30 years old again. And everything is clicking on all cylinders for the Knicks. They're a fun team to watch. I mean, they're really enjoyable. Novak sitting back there, it seems like he never misses a three. And, the Knicks are one of the best teams in the East, and they've destroyed Miami twice this season. I'm not saying that'll happen in the playoffs, but if Dwayne Wade isn't fully at 100%, I think if the Knicks keep playing like they have been, are going to be one of the toughest teams to beat in the league.
And what about the Rockets then with Jeremy Lin and James Harden and Oklahoma City?
They remind me a lot of the mid to late 1990s Cavaliers. They're fun to watch, but they're basically a 500 basketball team is what they are. Omer Sheik has been playing well, lately. He's getting a lot of rebounds, but but James Harden's, they still need another piece there. That's the thing. Houston needs another piece. And Jeremy Lin does not play well with James Harden on the floor at the same time. Jeremy Lin's been fantastic while Harden's been on the bench, and when he plays with Harden, his numbers are not good. So I think it's time that if Houston really want to win, you move Jeremy Lin to the bench, get him in there when Harden's not in the game for the majority, and play them at separate times. I think it gives Houston their best chance to win. But like I said, though, when Lin has been on the floor, when Harden hasn't, they've been very good.
All right, well, let's talk about the opposite of very good. Let's transition to the Browns here. The Browns were on a nice winning streak, and it could have been argued that if you take that Colts loss, if you take some of the shenanigans that happened in the late part of the season, that the Browns could have been on an 8-game winning streak. But their few-game winning streak was ended abruptly this past week, and it really let a lot of the sales out of a lot of the fans.
Well, you seem to forget who our coach is. It's, Pat Shurmur. So, it's going to be hard to win 8 games in a row when you've just been Shurmured.
You've been Shurmured.
I'm quoting fake Pat Shurmur on Twitter. And for any Browns fans listening, I highly recommend people follow him. He is the funniest guy on Twitter, fake Pat Shurmur. For anyone listening out there, I mean, he is hilarious.
You know what? I'm going to send something out. I'm going to send something out on a tweet that Zak Baris recommends that you follow at fake Pat Shurmur.
He is one of the funniest accounts on Twitter right now, especially if you're a Browns fan. It's just fun to watch. It's fun to just see his tweets. I always get a good laugh out of him.
Well, do you think that he is toast at the end of the year, guaranteed?
Oh, he's it's not, they've been saying he'd make a quick decision, and Bud Shaw today wrote to whether it's going to be Monday or Tuesday when the season ends. They said expect a decision within 24 to 48 hours. So Heckert's gone, and so is Shurmur. They're both gone.
So it's basically cleaning house is what we're looking at.
Yeah, they're probably going to be cleaning house. Yes.
Okay. Well, it is what it is then, and he gets to put his stamp on everything. Jimmy Haslam gets to hit reset on his $1 billion pile of garbage.
But the thing is, Haslam, the Browns do have a lot of talent right now, and that's the thing is their defensive side of the ball. They have a lot of talent. Phil Taylor's played really well since he's come back. The defense, other than last week, has been great. Ever since having a healthy Hayden Taylor on there. And the offense, there's times when you're sitting there watching Brandon Weed and you're like, just damn, that guy, he can make such a tight throw. He's got a cannon for an arm. And then you look at him at other times, and as soon as he throws one pick, on the next drive, pick number 2 is coming. The guy, when he implodes, it's all together. He doesn't recover well after throwing an interception. I think almost every one of his games where he's had a pick this year, he's thrown multiple picks in those games.
He turns into a Mayan apocalypse like the 2012 movie. If one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong.
Yeah, and that's been his problem. And, like I said, he has the arm, but I don't know if he's the right fit for this current West Coast system.
He's a rookie.
I don't know if any quarterback
he's an old guy. He's an old guy, 29 years old, but he is a rookie. I mean, people can
get
better. He
is a rookie, but his decision-making is highly questionable. Now, I'm not saying go out there and bring in someone else next offseason. I'm forgiving the guy's second year unless you can go out there and bring in a superstar quarterback, which I don't know will happen. And the only guy I think is a great fit, if Nick Saban becomes the coach of the Browns, I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not saying it won't happen. But if Saban's the next coach, I don't know if Brandon Whedon's the quarterback for that system. It seems like Alex Smith would then be a great fit there because they'd be looking a lot like the San Francisco 49ers, just in a ball control offense. You hand the ball a lot to the running back and you make short, quick, accurate throws. And that's what Alex Smith is good for.
Well, yeah, it's really disappointing this time of the year. I mean, the Browns were good enough to not be in that top conversation for one of the worst teams in the league. But, of course, now we're in that middle of the pack where you're not going to be drafting as high. But, I'm always...
the Browns every year, it never gets us any when we're drafting. I hate when people go, tank for the draft. I would much rather see the Browns this week and next week go out there and finish the season 7-9 and with the 16th pick in the draft. I would much rather see them go 5-11. Trust me. End the season on a good note. It's easier to sign free agents. Jimmy Haslam already said, and Joe Banner said they're not going to be allergic to free agency this year. They plan on going out and filling in some pieces. And you can always get quality guys in the middle of the first round. There are always guys you can grab them. The Browns took Phil Taylor at 20 or 21, wherever he went. And he's been great. Jabal Shear was in the second round.
Mitchell Schwartz has been solid.
Mitchell Schwartz has been coming along.
Yeah.
I mean, at the beginning of the year, I was not a fan of him at the beginning of the year. I thought his run blocking was suspected and he wasn't a good pass blocker. Now you look at him, and he's just been phenomenal since. He's been. I mean, the guy looks like he looks like a perennial Pro Bowler right tackle.
And if you have a decent line, everything else has a chance. I mean, Trent Richardson's been playing kind of banged up all year, and he doesn't have a lot of numbers as far as rushing yards.
He has 12 touchdowns.
He has the touchdowns.
That's what counts. He's been pounding the ball in the red zone, and that's what the Browns have needed for
the
past, 14 years now.
Well, Hillis for most of a season, but then he disappeared.
Yeah, for one season. But like I said, Trent Richardson, I expect him to go out there and be much better next year. I also think Shermer's offensive system is a complete joke. I'd love to see them bring in, and that's why I'm not a fan of Pat Shermer, but I think as soon as this team brings in or a guy who can actually run the offense, you've had players questioning the offense all year, and I think that's been a problem.
Oh, and Trent came out doing that pretty strong this past week, which, it gets to that point where it's like, do you start publicly throwing people under the bus, or are you just offering your honest opinion? People like to kind of say, like, oh, you're a troublemaker if you're putting that out there in the media, but it's your opinion. It's you have a game plan. You figure that you're going to do 50-50 run and pass, and you completely abandon the run when you're winning the game in the second half, and it makes no sense, and he's just baffled. I don't blame him for going public last week about it.
Exactly. The guy doesn't, Pat Shurmur tends to abandon the run every second half of every game. And it's just so frustrating. I mean, you've seen me on Twitter. I am, I'm the most bipolar Browns fan you'll ever meet. I mean, granted, there are a ton of them. But, like, literally, I will sit there, I don't ever sit there praising Whedon for an entire game. I don't think I ever have. Because the guy makes so many stupid mistakes. But, the guy I rip on most is Pat Shurmur, just for the play calling offensively. It's just, it's terrible to watch in the second half of games because, Whedon winds up throwing 25 passes compared to 2 runs.
It's hard to understand. It's hard to understand.
The game plan is very vanilla on the offensive side of the ball. It's just constant passes from the pocket. There's no, they integrate very few bootlegs. They don't run the ball to the outside. And it's just, like I said, I worked with the football team at the University of Arizona for a couple of years. I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about football. It's just because I don't work it anymore doesn't mean I don't know the sport just as well as I know basketball. Because I could have worked in football. Basketball, it was just a better opportunity for me. And those were the 2 sports I worked in college. And, I see that with the Browns is just like when you lack creativity to an offensive game plan, teams are going to figure your system out. It's not that difficult. It's not that hard to stack 8 guys in the box and play man coverage, on your receivers because, they're throwing these short intermediate routes all the time that don't go anywhere. That's the thing is very rarely, Shermer's opened it up lately, throwing the deep ball to Josh Gordon a few times a game. But, like I said, we need another weapon or they need to try something else. Look what happened against the Chiefs when he ran that, when they ran out of the Wildcat, the last couple of times it's been successful. I think it was the only 2 times I've ever seen the Wildcat in Shermer's system.
Right.
And then you see the triple reverse, Travis Benjamin, see him going deep with him. You have to utilize your playmakers into the game plan. And when you involve guys like Travis Benjamin, Josh Gordon, Greg Little's been playing so well, too, since he got moved to the number 2 receiver role.
Oh, yeah.
Ever since you've taken him out of the spotlight, he's been fantastic.
Yeah, he never fit where he was at. He never fit as a number 1.
He was a terrible fit.
He's a converted running back that was suspended the year before. That is
and
almost impossible.
Look at that run he had on the pitch to the outside that brought him down to the 1-yard line. You're just like, where the hell did that
Because he's an athlete. He's a playmaker. I think Josh Cribbs is gone. You look at Travis Benjamin as the second coming, and even has the dreadlocks to prove it.
It's unfortunate, though, that Cribbs is gone because not only his returning skills have declined. They have. But, I'd love to see Benjamin back there returning kicks and punts. I think but Josh Cribbs just overall as a special teamer is a playmaker.
He makes the tackles. He makes those plays.
He has prevented countless touchdowns for the Browns on special teams, defensively for the last few years. And it's going to be sad to see him go because he's such a good sign for the city of Cleveland. He's so positive. He's one of the few athletes that actually, he's one of the guys that actually lives in Cleveland year-round. He does such good work in the community. It's going to be unfortunate to see him go and you lose a leader in the locker room. That's the problem with getting rid of him.
Pay the man.
And I still do like him as a kick returner. I just think Benjamin would be better returning punts.
Yeah, he's younger, he's faster, and he's getting it done.
Yeah, and Tony Grossi seems to think they're going to lose Phil Dawson this offseason.
Well, I was going to ask you next about Dawson. You think, well, what is the next option? To pay him $11 million a year as a kicker?
I don't know. I mean, I try to get a deal done with him, but I mean, obviously, if he doesn't want to stay, I could see him being the next kicker of the Cowboys. He's the best kicker in the league, I think. At least he's the most accurate. He doesn't have the strongest leg, but he's by far the most accurate kicker in the league, and he can still kick field goals above 50 yards with ease.
And he's pretty clutch. That clutch
He's not
gene.
going to sit there like Janikowski and be able to drain a 60 to 65-yard field goal, going to halftime. But he's going to go out there, and drain every 50-plus yard field goal you're going to give him.
Well, so let's do this. Let's role play before we bounce over to the Indians and then go into overtime and just take it away from sports real quick. If you are Jimmy Haslam, just pretend that Zak Baris now is in charge of the entire Cleveland Browns. What do you do? What do you do starting right now to the end of the season? What do you go after? How do you rebuild this? How do you restart it?
It all depends on who's hired as a coach, but I think if you go out there and you fire, and he's confident in his decision to fire Heckard and Shermer, which is going to happen, you need to find a legitimate guy who can run in the front office, and I'm not talking about Mike Lombardi.
Yeah.
I think the Browns are going to make a move. I'm not saying they're going to get him because I doubt he comes back, but they're going to wind up offering Cowher again. It's going to happen. Haslam's a Steeler guy. He's going to make a move at Cowher, but Cowher's been out of the game for 6 years. It's going to be tough to get him back in. So I think they're going to. I heard this morning, that they're going to make a legitimate run at Nick Saban again. And I heard that he may actually leave. And I think Saban would be a good fit for the Browns. It's a guy who's been with the organization before. He runs a really good defense with a ball. We already have his running backs. They have receivers that can flourish in a system with Gordon and Little. Gordon plays the role of the Julio Jones type receiver and go and catch the deep ball and just basically catch about anything. Little's been great lately. He breaks a lot of tackles. And especially the Browns have a lot of cap room. I was listening to Jason Luckenfora last week on, he's on 92.3. And he was basically saying, look at the Browns are going to go after a guy like Dwayne Bowe, Wes Welker, Danny Amendola. All three would be fantastic fits for the Browns. And don't expect to sign more than one of them because it's not happening, even if you get one. But all three of those guys would be perfect fits for a ball control offense, especially. And then, you go out there, like I said, if it were me, I'd give Weeden another year. If it's Nick Saban coming as the head coach, I go out there and I go out there and try to get Alex Smith. He's a perfect fit for that kind of offense. If it wasn't for Kyle Williams fumbling 2 punts last year, they would have been in the Super Bowl. I think, and I would go out there and I would try to sign an outside linebacker and maybe a defensive back. But I think most good defensive backs are found through the draft, obviously not free agency.
Yeah,
so
the defensive backs
I think the Browns
have just
can find a quality linebacker though through the draft because the problem is when you send a defensive back, these guys are getting astronomical amounts of money. Through free agency, these defensive backs, because a good one is so hard to find. So like I said, I would go through the draft route in the first round maybe to find a defensive back if there's one worth taking wherever they're drafting. And I think you can fill in a good linebacker through free agency. That all depends on if you get Chris Gokung healthy, but he's coming off of a year of not playing. So there's a lot of issues. Like I said, the Browns right now have holes in the secondary. I think you have a corner spot open next year, one of the safety spots. One outside linebacker, maybe even two, because you definitely need depth. So I think you have three positions on the defensive side of the ball. You have to fill in probably 4. I think the defensive line is set. I think the defensive line is fantastic. I think you have to look at offensive guard as a position of need, fullback, and a punter. I think Reggie Hodges is the worst punter in the game right now.
Yeah, we saw your tweet multiple tweets railing about our punter not really getting the job done. Missed the days of Disasterville.
2 years ago, he was fantastic. I got to give it to Reggie. He was great in Mangini's system. And then he had the injury last year, and, the guy, it just looks like he hasn't recovered. It's unfortunate to see that, but it's time to cut your ties with him and let him go because he shanked numerous punts this year.
And it hurts. It hurts when you're barely on the verge of, an overtime game against the Cowboys. You need to execute those special teams plays, not just a nice return or a block, something sexy. You need to do all the things right, including you need to play that field position game, play the Jim Tressel ball. You got to get the little things right to give your team a chance. And something's been lacking on that special teams. The special teams killed us last year, and there've been a lot of ups and downs on them this year.
Yeah, granted, their special teams has been a lot better in the last few weeks. They've been fantastic, actually. But there are still issues. The special teams have gotten a lot better. But like I said, I want to see some changes in the organization. Something needs to be done. I just don't like Pat Shurmur as a coach, and I think he's preventing the development of a lot of players. I think our offense is very predictable at most times, and it's like I said, it's just hard to watch.
Well, speaking of hard to watch, the Indians have been pretty lousy as well. What do you make of the off-season moves in the Major League Baseball world?
Honestly, the Indians, they've made one move.
Ta-da! Now sign up and get season tickets. Come on in. That's what they're saying.
Hopefully it stops. But if they sign Nick Swisher, they went on and signed Scott Kazmir today. Too bad it was 6 years late. But I don't know. I really don't know what to think of the Indians. But if they get Nick Swisher, I can safely say, at least the front office is doing something. And I enjoy them making. I enjoy, that they're actually going out there and spending money and trying to make a move to at least better the team.
Yeah, I would love to see them put that team up for sale. See somebody come in with the fire of a Dan
I don't
Gilbert
think
or
it's
Jimmy
happening,
Haslam.
but you never know. It could always happen in the future. But
yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully, but I don't know about it.
At least it'll be an exciting product out here in Los Angeles to watch. I think Josh Howard. I'm sorry. Josh Hamilton. Sorry, and Albert Pujols. I think that's going to be really interesting to watch over with the Angels. That should be fun. And the Dodgers are spending like crazy drunken sailors on leave, just running off their credit card bill.
Moves are going to pay off. I mean, I hope they do. I like watching the Dodgers.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, Zach. I don't know. I was getting really excited for the Browns, and they kind of let me down there. Gave me a little bit.
The Browns always expect the Browns to let you down, but I feel like the Dodgers changing now that Jimmy Haslam as the owner. I feel like it has gotten better. They've been winning since he came in. Hopefully they manage to make minor changes to the team. I don't think it needs a complete overhaul. Let's just hope.
Well, the overhaul component is do you start from scratch again, or do you just keep going? And I'm trying to remember, have we spoken since the Buckeyes went undefeated? How many weeks has that been? A couple of weeks? I'm trying to remember.
It's been a while, and just remember, I was the one who predicted at the beginning of the season that I could see this team at 12-0.
Absolutely. So I don't know. Do you feel happy about this season? Is it vindicating? What does it feel like now? Like everyone's talking about their national championship game, Alabama, Notre Dame, fantastic. But, we can sit here and say, go Buckeyes, we're undefeated, we're going to claim the national championship. Not that it's going to be officially recognized.
Sucks that Ohio State's not going to be playing that game because I'm going to Miami next week. And, I would have definitely, I'm leaving on the 6th, but I can definitely tell you I would have stayed there for the game.
Yeah.
If Ohio State was playing Alabama or Notre Dame in that game. And it just, like I said, it's, it just sucks. There's nothing else you can really say that they're not in a bowl game. But, Gordon Gee even said the other day that there was nothing they could do. He said even if they would have taken the bowl ban last year, they would have still had the bowl ban this year. So, like I said, there's nothing you can do about it. You live and learn. And I fully expect this team to be in the national title game next year. I don't see too many roadblocks on their schedule next year.
Braxton Miller is going to be a heck of a lot better with another year in that system.
Exactly. I think, especially, you've got Carlos Hyde now for a full season. You don't forget you have Jordan Hall coming back next year, I believe. And then you have, I expect Rod Smith to be better and Briante Dunn. You have 4 quality running backs on that roster. The receivers can't get any worse than they were a year ago. You're not losing too many guys from the offensive side of the ball other than Stoneburner, who really was irrelevant at the end of the year.
Yeah, that was weird.
And it's unfortunate they're going to lose Jonathan Hankins, but if Bradley Roby stays, I think they'll be all right.
Well, all right. Well, let's wrap it up there and just move to overtime. I mean, there's been a blurring of worlds here for all the wrong reasons. We alluded to it earlier with the Chiefs and Jovan Belcher, and then Bob Costas going on NBC and talking about knowing for certain that if there wasn't a gun in that household, the girlfriend and Jovan Belcher would be alive, seemingly forgetting that Bob Costas worked with O.J. Simpson, who murdered people with a knife, and knives weren't banned. And then Jason Whitlock calls the NRA the new KKK, and
I refuse to even read a Whitlock tweet. I've hated Jason Whitlock now for about 3 years. I unfollowed him about a year and a half ago. It was the best decision I ever made. I refuse to read a Whitlock article though. I can't stand the guy.
It's pretty disgusting, the stuff that he's saying. Pretty.
I can't stand
horrible.
Jason Whitlock. I think the problem is he's too opinionated. His opinions always go overboard. I think he does it for thrills. And the one thing that drove me nuts was a couple of years ago, the guy who wrote an article, how LeBron couldn't be a more hated player in the NBA. LeBron was the worst person in the NBA. And then suddenly he changes his stance around about a month later going, everybody loves LeBron. He's the most beloved player in the NBA. I go, you know what? Stick to your guns, shut the hell up, and just talk. Stick with your current point. Stop changing opinions. Nobody wants to hear you. I couldn't stand the guy. I think the guy's a putz. I don't want to read any of his stuff. I don't read anything of his on Twitter. I cannot stand the guy.
Well, okay. Well, how about Rob Parker? How about
he's
his
an idiot
comments?
too. He's talking about Robert Griffin not being black enough. Are you kidding me? Rob Parker's sitting there every day. He's a journalist. The guy's not sitting there on the street. He's not sitting there on the streets of Detroit where he's from, in the 8 Mile. The guy, he's a hypocrite. He's a hypocrite. And I think he's an idiot too. ESPN hires these morons for thrills. And I'm sorry if I'm going off now about this, but Skip Bayless is a moron. Stephen A. Smith is a moron. They hire all these idiots to be working just to get a thrill out of people. These guys don't know anything about the game, and they're just pure entertainment. First Take of the show should have been taken off the air when Rob Parker made those comments. Granted, First Take should have probably been taken off the air 6 years ago when they changed the name to Cold Pizza. But, it's ESPN's most watched show because it's so controversial and these guys are such idiots. People love to just hear them babble.
The comment we're talking about here, this one's from Rob Parker on ESPN. Is he a brother? Talking about RG3, Robert Griffin III. Is he a brother or is he a cornball brother? He's not really. He's black, but he's not really down with the cause. He's not one of us. He's kind of black, but he's not really like the guy you'd want to hang out with. I just want to find out about him. I don't know, because I keep hearing these things. He has a white fiance. People talking about that he's a Republican. There's no information at all. I'm just trying to dig deeper into why he has an issue. Tiger Woods was like, I have black skin, but don't call me black. People wondered about Tiger Woods early on about him.
And it's the same thing is why is every black man required to vote for Barack Obama? It's not a requirement. You do not have to be a Democrat. There have been black Republicans. Look at Condi Rice. She's a Republican, and I think it's just funny. I have friends. I would say the majority of my friends are black. The majority of my friends are not white. I work in an industry where there are a lot of athletes. I have a lot of friends who are athletes. We keep our political differences to ourselves. We do, because we all have differing opinions, and you're not, and I don't bring them up. But like I said, though, at the same time, I don't see why he cares who Robert Griffin votes for. I don't think it's a big deal, and I don't think it matters that he's dating a white girl. That he has a white fiance. I really don't think it matters. He grew up in a military family. The guy's not from the streets. He's not. But I think Rob Parker's a complete hypocrite, and I think I'm glad he basically is suspended and he's going to lose his job from ESPN. I don't like the guy, and I don't like Whitlock. Whitlock gets He gets away with a lot of stuff just because he can.
Well, and you know what?
If a white guy wrote those articles that Whitlock writes, they would never get away with
exactly.
it. I don't even want to get into this. But I said it, and I completely I stand with what I just said because nobody else would get away with it. Whitlock brings up controversy on purpose. He brings up this kind of stuff on purpose. He does it to get a rise out of people, and that's why Skip Bayless says some of the stuff he does. Stephen A. Smith, Rob Parker, these guys just do it for entertainment purposes.
Well, you can look at ESPN. They got rid of Hank Williams Jr. real quick for less than that, and then they had Rush Limbaugh on doing some of the commentary, and he kind of mentioned out there, just saying that it seems like that the media really wants Donovan McNabb to succeed, despite and it's like they're ignoring the statistics and trying to make this. Just canned, run out of town on a rail real quick for something that, if you look back on, I think the concept of what he was getting at was that he was kind of getting a bit of a free pass because same thing they've some people have said about the White House press corps over the past 4 years. But, I don't know. It just seems like it's a double standard. It's really weird when you start mixing politics with sports or social issues with sports.
I heard the same thing, and I have, it's like the Rooney Rule in sports. Should the Rooney Rule really exist? They say, does a black man have a fair shot or a minority? Because like I said, Ron Rivera is a Hispanic. So does a minority have a fair shot at being hired as a head coach in the league? I feel if our president is a minority and is able to be elected president, I don't think the rule should exist anymore. Barack Obama was fairly elected in the White House by the majority of our nation twice. Why do we need the rule?
That's a little debatable if you read some of the lunatic fringe articles about the voter fraud in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Florida, but that's another
I know, but
issue.
Still, but just going at it, though, is still. I mean, this is a man, okay, let's say at least he's accumulated millions and millions of votes, okay? This is for people differing on the subject. But like I said, though, he's still running our country. He's in charge. He's in charge of the entire nation. I think that minority head coaches do have a fair shot in college and the NFL these days. There are plenty of minority head coaches, and it was like reading the article about the coach of Colorado who got fired. I watched them for 2 years. They're in the Pac-12. They were the worst team I've ever seen play D1 football. The coach deserved to be fired. I don't know if he deserved a third year.
Right.
You just have to look at this sometimes and go, you know what? Sometimes different stuff gets scrutinized by the media. Everything gets taken out of context. I feel like the media is all about drama these days. If you go back and watch SportsCenter in 1999 or 2000, all they cared were about sports. They were showing highlights, and that was it. Now everything's about off-field everything's about off-the-court topics and off the field. And that's the problem with sports these days. It's not enough about sports. It's all about drama because that's what people love.
Well, you know what? You bring up something interesting because LeBron worked the Miami Heat into this whole thing with George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. And this kind of comes back to the gun control thing because, we still haven't even had a trial here, but you have Spike Lee, who's Mr. New York Knicks, and LeBron James getting everyone to wear hoodies. And we still don't know if this dude was attacked or if the guy was being overzealous or not, but it comes down to that point of, are you able to defend yourself? And that's the big story right now with guns and the Second Amendment and all this stuff going on. But just to clarify real quick, I just want to say, Rush Limbaugh, he was saying, I don't think, regarding Donovan McNabb, Rush Limbaugh said, I don't think he's been that good from the get-go. I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. I think the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. They're interested in black coaches and black quarterbacks doing well. I think there's a little hope invested in McNabb, and he's got a lot of credit for the performance of his team that he really didn't deserve. The defense carried this team. And he's run out of town on a rail. He approaches an issue. He brought it up. You can disagree with him, but he was instantly shut down, slammed, and fired, and just completely discarded the fact that, well, I don't know. Are they being a little too lenient on it? I don't know. It's a complicated thing, but, guns in sports now, whether it's Zimmerman and LeBron and Jovan Belcher, it's front and center, and that's all I'm hearing about on the other radio shows that I'm doing. What are your thoughts on this whole gun conversation regarding the horrible tragedies?
I think obviously something needs to change. I don't think it should be, this kid, Adam Lanza, I don't feel any bit of, his mom was an enabler. His mom took a completely mentally disturbed child to the gun range every week, had assault rifles in her house, It's not like he was able to, he was not able to apply for a gun permit. He had tried to acquire a gun illegally the week before, from what I understand. He wound up getting on, and he wound up getting his hands on his mom's guns. His mom should have never had those in the house, especially with a mentally disturbed child, And it's, like I said, I believe in order to be gun, I think it should be much tougher to be able to get a gun in the United States. I think it's very easy to get a gun. But like I said, if you make guns illegal, it just makes the black market that much bigger and that much more illegal activity. So I really don't know exactly what needs to be done, but something needs to be done.
Yeah, and
I'm not a politician. I can't sit here because I don't have that defining of an opinion on the subject to begin with because I don't know enough about it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I do. But you can make an argument either way. But like I said, something needs to be done in this country. There have been way too many shootings. I lost a friend in the Colorado shooting, in the movie theater shooting. He was a friend of mine in college. We were on spring break together.
I didn't know that.
He went to Arizona with me, and I didn't even know about it because I had just moved apartments, and I didn't have cable for 2 days. And I got a call from a friend from school basically saying, did you see the kid from Arizona that died in the shooting? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I think he's a friend of yours. And I go, why do you think that? He goes, you got about 10 pictures on Facebook with the kid. And I was like, oh my God, and then I look a week later, I look a couple days later, he's on the cover of People magazine, and he was one of the kids who died protecting his girlfriend. And ever since then, I've cared, these stories were never, they never hit me that hard emotionally. And now whenever I see them, it's hard for me to even watch news coverage on them because it hits so close to home. You never think you're going to know one of the victims until it actually happens. And
you never think about concealed carry until you walk out of your condo one day and 3 pit bulls are ripping the throat out of your neighbor's dog and chasing residents, myself included, into the next building. And you're calling out 911 for
carrying a handgun is different than having an assault rifle, though.
Well,
there's a difference.
Kind of.
You're not going to be able to fire off 100 rounds in a matter of seconds with a handgun.
You'd have to be really fast, but yes, I do get your point.
That's why I think something needs to be done. I think it needs to be much harder to get your hand.
Zach, we still got you? Oh, just as the conversation was getting heated. Zach, did we lose you? Hang on. I'm actually going to hit redial because I want you, the listener, to know that I didn't cut him off there because we were starting to disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, I was making sure that the listeners understand I wasn't cutting you off there because we're starting to disagree. We just lost our connection. So we were talking about the difference between.
What I was saying is, I just think something needs to be tougher. Whether it's mental evaluations, for people, and looking at full background history with families involved too. Because, like I said, there are a lot of crazy people in this country nowadays, and there are a lot of copycats. People love getting a rise out of the public, and they love getting the stuff for the media. And the media. The problem is the media portrays the victims too much than they do. The shooters than they do the victims.
Yeah.
And people love getting the media attention. That's what happened with the movie theater shooter. These kids, the media needs to profile the victims more, and I think a lot of it has to do with the media. The media has to profile the victims more than they do the shooter. And that's the problem. People love getting the attention. There are so many sick people in this world out there, and it's unfortunate.
And
like I said, you never saw this stuff until Columbine.
I think it was 95, a woman testified, and she was, I just watched the video, she was doing a congressional hearing, and some madman drove into the wall of the diner where she was at with her parents, and the guy just started killing people, point-blank range, shot and killed like 20 people. And she thought for a second she was going to be all right because she had her concealed carry permit, but there was a law in Texas saying she had to leave her handgun in her purse, in her car, because she couldn't bring it into the establishment, and she could have defended herself. Her mom and dad were killed right in front of her. And for me, my point with the Second Amendment is I have the right to defend myself at all times. I don't have the right to go kill and injure people ever. And there are crazy people. There are bad people that want to do bad things. But after 9/11, we didn't ban airplanes. After the Dallas Cowboys drunk driving crash, we didn't ban cars.
I completely agree. But like I said, when you give a mentally ill person, like I said, I'm not saying they should completely take guns off the market. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm saying, though, in order to acquire a gun, it should be much tougher than it already is. If you've had any kind of mental illness, if you're on any kind of mental any medication for having a mental illness, you shouldn't be able to acquire a gun. Those are the people who are doing this right now. The Adam Lanza had a serious mental problem, and no, he did not have Asperger's. I know 3 or 4 kids with Asperger's right now they're the nicest kids ever. They're just socially awkward. That's it. They're the nicest kids ever. And I can safely say the kid did not have Asperger's. I don't know the kid, but people with Asperger's are not like him after reading what was wrong with this kid. But getting back to it, he just seemed like an antisocial. And that's the problem is when someone has a history of mental illness, I don't believe they should be able to own a gun.
Well, and I think and I get that point, but I would refer you to Brandon Robb, the Marine, who was posting some controversial things on his Facebook site, and he was kidnapped by members of the government. He was detained without charges, basically as the slippery slope of pre-crime, kind of like a Tom Cruise movie in Minority Report.
Yeah.
If you can identify pre-crime, well, then you could maybe just be admitted to a mental institution because you're not going along with the program. You don't fit in. You're not buying into the political ideologies of a Bush, Rumsfeld, or Cheney, or an Obama, Hillary Clinton, Eric Holder. Whatever the case may be, it's not Democrat, Republican. But if we're not careful, that is a very slippery slope where we can sign over the ability for people to just be taken for our own good. It's just it's a really complex issue.
I have a friend right now that acquired a handgun. I told him about a year ago. I said, if you have a handgun, I said, I'm not hanging out with you anymore when you have it. Or if I'm even around it, because my friend has a particularly violent temper. He's on medication, and I don't want to be around him when he goes crazy. What if he overreacts to a situation? I don't want to be around it. That's why I think it should be much harder to acquire. I think that's why it should be much harder to acquire, and I think a gun, and I think anybody buying a gun legally should have to undergo a psychiatric evaluation in order to acquire one. And that's what I'm saying. I know you might not agree with that, but like I said, it's gotten to the point. I mean, granted, you can get one on the street if you wanted to for a few $100s, but granted, something needs to be done in this country. Otherwise, it's going to keep happening over and over again.
Well, Zach, I'll tell you what. It's interesting because I have a psychology degree. I volunteered at a 24-hour crisis center. Mental health is an issue that I've paid a lot of attention to. I paid to go to college and learn about this stuff. And I get what you're saying. I guess I'm just erring on the side of that being a dangerous, slippery slope. But I will tell you straightforward, I appreciate the hell out of you willing to step outside of the sports and get into this conversation because, we got to talk about this. I don't like what I'm getting on just Fox News or just MSNBC or just Dr. Drew on CNN or something. this conversation is way more complicated and way more robust, and I think having these types of conversations, it's helpful for all of us to kind of reevaluate where we're at, what are good ideas, what are questionable, maybe we could try something out, be wary of slippery slopes. I like bringing up the conversation, so I do want to thank you for going there this week with us. Because
you might disagree with what I say, and I fully expect that. A lot of my friends don't agree with what I say, some do. But like I said, at all points, especially after 20 little kids between the ages 5 and 10 are murdered, something has to be done. I don't know what it is, but something needs to be done. I just don't know what.
Well, you can't
let this ever happen again.
I heard the conversation from the NRA. Wayne LaPierre. He said, we value money, so we have armed guards at banks. All of these nice corporate buildings have armed guards at the doors and at the lobbies. They're all armed. You look at the private residences and their gated communities, they're all armed. We protect everything that we value, but not the school. Why shouldn't the school be protected with armed guards? And it's like, there are going to be bad people doing bad things. That's why you protect them with the Second Amendment, not strip people from it.
I was fortunate enough to go to a high school. I went to Orange High School in Cleveland, where we always had, we had policemen that were always on duty in the school. It was a great high school, But, we were fortunate where something probably did, luckily nothing ever happened. But if something did happen, we always had a policeman or two on duty in the school at all times.
Right. Not sitting
ducks. And it always made me feel safer, though, having a policeman in the school. Whether you like it or not, he's not there just busting kids for weed. He's not sitting there going through people's lockers. He's making sure that, that the school is under control.
Right.
I liked having it. But not every school in the country is privileged enough to have a police officer or afford one to have one in their school.
That might have to be
money.
Part of the national conversation. That might have to be
part
of it.
If you go to East Cleveland and it's terrible down there, the schools down there are horrible, and you have to deal with there's only one cop on duty for the entire city. They have no money. They can't afford to hire security.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with it. You have to go either hire private security or you have to get the police force, which is willing to supply an officer for you. And it's not always necessarily the case, and that's the problem with it. It's very expensive to have a police officer at your school at all times.
Well, I think I think it might be safe to agree that we both hate seeing bad things like this happen, and we want to see less of these bad things happen. How we get there, that's going to be an interesting conversation, and that's why the name of our other show is called Agree to Disagree, because it's like, fine, approach an issue from a totally different side, kind of different, doesn't matter. I need the conversation, and sometimes sports is my distraction from the important stuff, and sometimes I need the important stuff to remind me that the sports really aren't that important, and I kind of use it as a balance. We try to blur the worlds a little bit, try not to be bombastic like Jason Whitlock, or, stupid and reckless with some of these ridiculous comments. So, no, I do really appreciate the time today because we kind of got into a touchy issue.
I really do appreciate it, as always. And I'd love to be on again in the near future.
Absolutely. Well, Zach, let's hope the Cavs can get it figured out. Maybe the Lakers will turn it around. We'll have plenty to talk about with the Browns and the Buckeyes coming up in the offseason here real soon. And who knows, maybe the Indians will make a move or two. So, yeah, I just want to wish you, Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season, Happy New Year. Glad you survived the Mayan calendar reset and all of that.
It's still the 21st. We still have a few more hours left.
You had to just go and say it. I'm
just messing around. I've been waiting all day for that asteroid to come down and strike Hollywood, but it hasn't come yet.
Well, Maynard from Tool sang about that in the song Enema. But check those lyrics out. I think you'll get a real big kick out of it. Tool Enema. Look up the lyrics. It's about basically putting Hollywood underwater, flushing it down. I want to see it come down, suck it down, flush it down.
Well, the problem is all the water's going to go down because Hollywood's located at the top of the hill, right at the base of the mountain. So all the water's going to drip into the ocean, hit Culver City and all the suburbs that are south of Hollywood. So I don't really think we really have to worry about having a water rush here for a giant flood.
Well, I'm right by Culver City, so I'll have to learn to swim.
Well, good luck to you then. You're closer to the beach.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Zach. Hey, happy holidays. Stay safe, and we'll stay in touch
soon.
Take care. All right. Peace out. That is Zak Baris, good friend of the show, lifetime Cleveland sports fan and NBA scout Zak Baris. Check him out on Twitter. He's at ZBaris. That's ZBaris. Yeah, it's always weird when Rob Parker comes up and brings race into sports. I think what he said was absolutely moronic, talking about RG3 being, you know what he said. That's pretty ridiculous. But is it equally ridiculous for Hank Williams Jr. to get his song booted from Are You Ready for Some Football? Because he questioned the administration's policies, like just boot him, and Rush Limbaugh bringing up, well, there aren't a lot of black quarterbacks in the league, and it sure seems like he's getting a lot of credit for what the defense is doing. Yes, Rush is also a bombastic person that likes to go out there. But are you allowed to talk about these things? Does it make sense? Is it okay for Bob Costas to bring up the Second Amendment? And I think what he said was ridiculous, saying that he knows Jovan Belcher and his girlfriend would be alive if a gun wasn't there. That's nonsense. A crazy, violent person will kill you with their bare hands. They'll invent new ways to kill it. Look at Michael Vick. What was he drowning? Was he electrocuting animals? Creepy, violent people will find ways to kill. They always do. So, I mean, this conversation in light of the tragedy, this horrible shooting, and then the Batman shooting, and Columbine, and any way you want to point to any bad thing happening, we don't want to see more of that stuff. We don't want to see it, but disarming the American people is not the answer. Pre-crime, Minority Report type mental health nightmares where you can just be taken off the street and committed against your will. These are slippery slopes, and there's a reason the First Amendment is that you can say anything you want and believe anything you want. The Second Amendment says you have the right to protect yourself, to say whatever you want and believe whatever you want. What if some bad person seized power and was able to use these tricks and little maneuvers to disarm you, make you vulnerable, take you away? Some people say that could never happen here. Oh, we could never go bankrupt. We got $17 trillion on a credit card. I mean, come on. Who are the pie-in-the-sky crazy people when you're not even willing to do the math on the debt and realize that it's dangerous and unstable? And some people want the public disarmed so we can rely dependent on government. I don't want that. But really, special thanks to Zak Baris for going there. It gets challenging, especially with so much going on. Bob Costas, Jason Whitlock, Rush Limbaugh, Rob Parker, all these guys. Race and guns and they're tough conversations. That's what we try to do here at the New American Media. By the way, in case you're listening to that, that's Johnny Rabb performing on this Twist of Nothing song composed by Sean Flynn, mixed and engineered by Chris Engelman, my brother. But yeah, thank you for going there on that conversation. And we're going to continue it. We're going to come back. We're going to talk with Blake Wally, Blake the Eccentric Wally. You can find him every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday on freedomizerradio.com for Eccentric Perspective, noon to 1:30 p.m. PST. We're going to talk about Benghazi. We're going to talk about Hillary Clinton. We're going to talk about guns, more guns, Second Amendment stuff. Happy December 21st, 2012, people. The date is finally here. On the West Coast, we've made it 4 hours and 50 minutes into the PM time. Maybe we'll even make it all through the night, and everything will be okay. Thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at American_media_. Subscribe to YouTube.com/The New American Media. Like our Facebook page. Thank you for listening to The Unhappy Hour here on The New American Media.com.
You are listening to The New American Media.
Welcome back, netizens, to this newest edition in Juice Media series of rap news journalism with me, Robert Foster. This evening we're actively delving in depth to facts which affect all of us who dwell on this internet. And we've got to give a special welcome to all the ladies and agents from the NSA, ACO, MI5. Glad you're listening in, because today's show is all about surveillance and how it's spreading from the streets into our modems. As we speak, laws are being tacitly written in to implement ways of controlling the expanse of this internet to keep us safe, we're told. But from whom? And will this place ever be the same if these plans go through? To find out, we connect with our first guest to comment on the matter. We're live at the Panopticon with General Baxter. General, son, good to have you back again with us. Explain why the state is spying on us.
My fellow Oceanians, as you know, we've always been at war with Eurasia. Or is it East Asia? Either way, it's war and we need division to wage it. But now the proles are connecting online, bypassing these illusory divisions of race, religion, and nationality.
Sounds grand to me.
It's It's a catastrophe. Centuries of hard work are being undone, profits are vanishing, and it's due to the internet. It's empowering humanity. We need to get this snafu under control rapidly.
How?
Behold the latest weapon in the war of terror. Our greatest invention since 9/11. Guaranteed to keep us free and safe forever. I give you the surveillance state, ladies and generals. Our secret wires log your key style. Monitor every single number on your speed dial. Rewind straight to your position with facial recognition and pinpoint you within 0.03 of a mile. We've put eyes everywhere without consulting you, keeping you safe whether or not you want us to. Soon there'll be no freedoms left for threatening. Then we'll have won the war. Take that, terrorism.
Brilliant. Thank you, General. We now interview our resident guru, Terrence Moonseed, for a different view.
Greetings.
How does this situation look?
I have one word for you, Robert. Double plus ungood. The world populace of 7.4 billion are all headed in the direction of Orwellian totalitarian oblivion. My voice is hoarse, yelling about stellar winds, cold chilling them and trap wire weaving through the world wide web we all dwelling in. Face it, the all-seeing eyes in all of our Facebooks like a virus, and in these iPhones with Siri, or should I say Iris. Next in line is RFID devices and mind chips triggered by chemtrails the plague spray the sky with. This time it's too far. Check out the base they're building in Utah, where they'll be storing all your data for over a century. It's FUBAR. And under the outback is an entire tunnel of wires, an echelon base called Pine Gap to hijack our mother Gaia.
Hey, maybe your mother's gayer.
Boo-hoo. Why didn't you just kill yourself like most of your troops do?
That's it. Now you're on the cast iron list.
Hang on, General. Why weren't we informed about this?
Sorry we didn't tell you about our grand plan before. It was meant to be a surprise, under wraps in a store. But some spoil sports had to go and ruin it for all by blowing whistles in spite of the damn law.
Bill, Benny, and Thomas Drake are trailblazers for leaking these tactics.
Hey, civil liberty activists, this is all legal. Anything we do now actually is.
How did-
You can't question my authority thanks to this.
And that shit's global, people. In Australia, it's now legal for the government to store all SMSs, searches, and emails. Australians, it's taking place under your nose. Unless you wake up, all your data are belong to ACO.
Come on, everyone knows you can trust the government now. If you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to worry about.
That might be the case with things that are happening now, because most people agree with most of the laws that are being handed down. But once the Illuminati reveal their agenda for you, this surveillance will enforce laws you no longer consent to. But by then it'll be too late to protest too, and anything you've ever said, typed, or browsed can or will be used against you.
I'm confused. So what should we do then?
What should we do? Nothing. This is all an illusion. It's just a ride, a delusion, the Matrix, the Maya deceiving us.
Oh, you hippies really make our job so much easier.
Sorry to interrupt, but we're picking up a signal from beyond the space-time continuum. Quick, switch on the juice channeling portal. Wait, is that George Orwell?
Good day to you.
Wow, what do we owe this honor to?
I tried to warn you noobs, but I see you are actually fools, or else you thought this was an instruction manual.
Yes, so can you advise us? What would you have us do?
An open and universal internet is the most effective tool you have to address the issues that afflict the world at hand. Therefore, protecting it is the most essential task that stands before your generation.
I think I understand.
Hush, man. You must not lose the internet. Heed this mantra. Who controls the internet controls the data. And who controls the data controls the future.
We're losing you.
I leave you with a tool to use.
An onion?
Don't be simple, Robert. This is but a simile. It stands for Tor.
Tor?
Google it. It's for anonymity. This onion router open network helps considerably against tyranny, but its abilities only work if all you use it consistently. And even if you don't use it, run it so its force swells.
Thanks, Mr. Orwell.
From now on, call me George Torwell. If we'd had such tools when I wrote this, well, it would have been so much simpler to tell Big Brother to go himself. The mother sucking piece of shit.
Thanks, George Torwell, for manifesting direct from this memory hole of history to impress on us these messages. We're told we need safety, which is precious, yes, but can a society that can enforce all its laws ever progress? Hindsight shows that many figures guilty of thought crime turned out to be luminaries and heroes before their time. But if a surveillance state had reigned then in this form and design, just think of all the progress we may have all been denied. Could lobbies for women's or gay rights have appeared and thrived? Would revolutionary ideals have materialized? Would science have pioneered or even survived if every word had been monitored by thought police and spies? Big Brother brings chilling effects, freezing our collective hopes. He doesn't protect our safety, but protects the status quo and threatens this internet, the one channel yet uncontrolled, whose openness we are now called upon to effect and uphold.
If you're tired of the other stuff, take a look at the new American media. newamericanmedia.com.